The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, LAMAR McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, and Star Cable, as well as Ustream. If you'd like to give us a call, toll-free worldwide, 1-800-610-7035. My email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Robert LAMAR, and Robert has been a full-time entertainer since 1991. He initially specialized in the conjuring arts, turning his focus in 1996 to what he likes to call psychological illusionary, that is, mentalism, hypnotism, and memory training. During the same year, Robert created a theatrical presentation of stage hypnotism that he called Theater of the Mind, a theatrical concert that he still presents to this very day, X Zone Nation. Always having an interest in things of a paranormal, parapsychological, and pseudoscientific nature, although from a skeptical and critical thinking standpoint, Robert decided to channel his interest last year into the project he calls Skeptrix. Through a series of lectures and a website, Skeptrix teaches people how to develop or enhance their critical thinking skills by learning how to think like a conjurer. His websites, www.robertlamar.ca and www.skeptrix.com. That's skeptricks.com. Joining us from Halifax, Nova Scotia is Robert LAMAR. Robert, welcome back to the X Zone.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
It's always great talking to you, Robert. Tell me, how did you develop an interest in the conjuring arts?
Well, probably like most magicians, started at a very young age. I was around 5 when a friend's father made a dime disappear, and he later found it behind my ear. Now, I found out later that he was not a magician, and it was probably a very stupid, simple trick that he performed, but the bottom line was that it fooled me, and it really captured my attention. And just as things happened at the time, they were advertising on television later that year, a TV magic kit put out by a magician from Illinois by the name of Marshall Brodeen.
Oh, yeah.
And I happened to receive one of those kits for Christmas, probably like tens of thousands of other youths throughout North America. Mine, however, didn't end up under the bed or in my closet. I actually became quite entranced with it, learned a couple of the tricks, and just kind of developed from there.
And the rest is, as they say, history.
As they say, yes.
Robert, you and I have to take our commercial break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes, that is. No tricks, no conjuring, no sleight of hand. Just a simple fact. This is the X Zone on the Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition, and, of course, Star Cable and Ustream now. We'll be back on the other side of this 2-minute break with Robert LAMAR, www.robertlamar.ca and www. All right, you ready for this one? Skeptrix.com. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't go away. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Robert LAMAR is my special guest this hour, X-Zone Nation. And Robert, besides an interest in magic and the conjuring arts, how did you develop your interest and your love for hypnotism?
When I was 12, I was invited by our neighbor to attend a concert that was put on by Peter Ravine, who was a very famous Australian hypnotist that used to tour Canada, and he toured Canada very successfully for 35 years prior to retiring. And I was just captivated. I was just amazed at what I saw, and I didn't know anything about hypnotism at the time. Again, I was only 12, but I was just so entranced by Ravine himself and his persona on stage and just the whole show. And what I did the next day was I went into the school library, and they happened to have one book on hypnosis, and I took it out, and I attempted to read it, but I just couldn't wrap my head around a lot of the concepts, so my interest kind of faded. And it was several years later when we moved to my present location here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, that I had the chance to see Ravine again, and that rekindled my interest in hypnotism. And at my high school, they happened to have two books on hypnosis, of which by that point in time I could understand what was being said, and I started experimenting on my friends in the basement of my parents' home. And that's kind of where it started. And I used to put on shows when I was in grade 11 and 12. I used to put on shows in the AV room after school. We were allowed to go in there for about an hour, and typically it would be anywhere from about 20 to 30 students that would come in. And after about an hour, the janitor would come in and kick us out because he'd have to clean the place. And I did that throughout grade 11 and 12, probably about two to three times a week. And it continued a little bit into university as well.
All right, so here we've got, you're totally involved in conjuring and magic. You're totally involved in hypnosis. Where does the love for the paranormal come from, or the interest in the paranormal?
Well, I think like most people, especially when you're younger, you tend to be fascinated by the whole subject matter, whether it's ghosts or UFOs or Bigfoot. I still have a number of books that I received when I was a youth that I had purchased through the Scholastic program in school that had to deal with monsters and UFOs, etc., in the Bermuda Triangle.
Right.
And my turn as far as becoming skeptical of that stuff was aided by a fellow Canadian conjurer by the name of James Randi, which I'm sure most people are familiar with, the amazing Randi. And of course, Randi is a skeptic and very much of a critical thinker when it comes to things of a paranormal nature. So that's where it started, and picked up a couple of James Randi's books and kind of followed his lead. And of course, James Randi picked up where Harry Houdini left off, because Houdini really was the first magician that became, I guess, what you would call an active skeptic when it came to things of a paranormal nature.
Speaking about the paranormal, Rob, have you ever experienced anything of a paranormal, parapsychological, or pseudoscientific nature?
I'm being very honest when I say, unfortunately, no. I would love to. There's nothing more I would love to experience than whether it'd be seeing a ghost or some type of cryptozoological animal, seeing an unidentified flying object. I'd love to have the experience, but I've done quite a bit of investigative work just on my own, just as a hobby.
Right.
And I've talked with a lot of people that have apparently witnessed such things, but I myself have not had that experience. I'm open to the possibility that some of these things exist, but to date, I have not seen anything that would convince me yet.
All right, then, let me ask you this, Robert. Why do you think so many people believe or want to believe in the paranormal?
I think generally people are looking for something kind of outside of this world. I mean, when you start asking the big questions, why are we here? How did we get here? That really delves you into the mysterious. And I think it's very easy to fall into, and I'm using this word loosely, the trap of being lured by the paranormal, because there is so much about this world and this universe that we do not know. But I think what happens sometimes is that people that claim to have abilities or who have seen things or have apparently witnessed things, it's very easy to actually fool yourself. Our minds are complex machines, and they can be fooled very, very easily. And that's not to say that a person who is fooled is, stupid or dumb, or they're not smart or they're not intelligent. That's not the case at all. It's just we all have the ability of being fooled, of being taken in, of being tricked. Whether it's take an optical illusion, for example.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at something that's an optical illusion, it certainly appears real, but it's not. Now, people tend not to believe optical illusions because they're presented as such. It is an optical illusion. But put yourself in a situation, for example, you're out in the desert and you see an oasis. That's a form of optical illusion. But when you're in that setting, it can seem very, very real.
And yet people will take the optical illusion in the desert, realize that it is only an optical illusion, accept a scientific explanation for it, but when it comes to the paranormal, oh no, it's real.
Exactly. I think one of the biggest examples is you have people, I think a lot of people have experienced something like this, where, for example, they have a dream one night, a very vivid dream, let's say, of a horrific accident, let's say a plane crash.
Right.
And they wake up the next day, and perhaps it's the following day or maybe a couple days later, there's a plane crash that's reported that is very, very similar to what they had dreamed. Mm-hmm. Now, that can have a very powerful experience on a person and make them think that they perhaps have some type of psychic ability where they're able to see things that are going to happen in the future. Now, if you want to test something like that scientifically, what you would have to do is you would have to record every single dream that you have over a period of time, and how many of those dreams actually come true. So you might have 1,000 dreams, 990 don't come true, 10 come true. Well, is that just the odds of something happening? Is that just coincidence, or is that something that's of a paranormal nature? Well, I think, once you approach it that way, mm-hmm. I think it kind of takes this whole concept of having premonitions, and it kind of knocks it down a few pegs.
What do you think about those people who believe that they have the ability to tell the future or to communicate with those who have passed to the other side? All right, psychics, mediums, channelers. What's your take?
Well, I think there's two different types of people within those groups. One type I get very, very angry over. Mm-hmm. The other I don't. The vast majority of people, I think, are just, and I don't mean this in a derogatory sense, but I think it's just a case of being self-deluded. As we talked about here just a moment ago about having dreams, vivid dreams. People can have things that happen that apparently seem to be real. It seems like that they do possess some power, and they truly believe it. But when it's analyzed, they would be analyzed scientifically, it's just not the case. However, there is a small segment of people that call themselves psychics that are simply, they're scam artists, they're frauds. And those people really upset me because they're preying on the innocent. They're preying on people that might be emotionally distraught. Mm-hmm. You take some of the big psychics and people that talk to the dead that are in the marketplace today. Everybody from Sylvia Brown to James Von Praw. I don't know how they live with themselves.
Especially
I honestly don't know how they do it.
Especially when they charge so much money to
Well, Sylvia Brown, $750 for a 20-minute reading.
I know. It's ridiculous. And you know what? Here in Canada, telling fortunes for a consideration which is money or property is against the law. It's in the Criminal Code of Canada.
Well, I was shocked. We had an incident that happened Actually, it was just down the street from where I live, at the elementary school that my kids went to, just 3-4 years ago. A good friend of ours and a school teacher, who was actually my daughter's teacher in grade 3, her body was found in the trunk of her car at the schoolyard on December 28th of 2005. And the case is still not solved. And I've known her sisters for a number of years. About 3 months after the fact, once things kind of settled down a bit, I was on the telephone with one of the sisters, and we were talking for it was close to 3 hours. And she had informed me at the time that she had been contacted by a number of psychics that wanted to help for a fee to solve the crime.
For a fee?
For a fee to solve the crime. So anyways, I had a number of contacts that are quote-unquote psychic, so I didn't want her to pursue, waste her money on that. So what I did was I contacted, there was a lady that I don't know really well, but I knew of, that was in the state of Washington, and somebody else that was over in Slovenia. And all I gave them were the very basics of the case. And both came back with 2 completely different outcomes.
You know what really ticks me off is we had a psychic on the show, and his name is Robbie Thomas. He came on the show, and he told us that he was working on a missing girl that was in Woodstock, Ontario, going back a couple of years, that she was going to be found alive and well. She was found dead.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that case. It's terrible. I don't know how somebody like him, how he can live with himself.
Neither do I, but you know what? You and I have to take our break. Please stand by, Robert. Great having you back with us here in the X-Zone. X-Zone Nation, Robert LAMAR is his name, www.robertlamar.ca, ROBERTLAMAR.ca, and skeptrix.com. We'll be back. Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Robert LAMAR is our special guest, www.robertlamar.ca and www.skeptrix.com. In all fairness, Rob, we were talking about the dark side of some psychics, and yet there are psychics like Annette Martin, who we've had on the show a number of times. She has been used by the FBI. She has been used by different city and state law enforcement agencies that without her help, arrests and convictions would not have been done. How do we explain that?
Well, see, the first thing I would do is I would actually like to contact specifically those law enforcement agencies and talk with the officers themselves to see exactly what, if any, help was provided by the psychic. Because when that has been done, in a lot of cases, the stories just don't mesh.
Well, she was she was the very first psychic to be sworn in as a psychic in a court case, a criminal court case. Mm-hmm. And her testimony was used by the prosecution in the case.
Right. I'd have to. I won't comment on her specifically because I just don't know anything about her.
But I know Sylvia Brown, I know Robbie Thomas, and the list goes on and on and on. You know, to me, I ask the same question: how can you live with yourself? How can you actually go on tour, and try and suck other people in? Number one, to paying to see you. Number two, to sit down and get readings from you. I don't understand it.
Well, when I watch like James Von Prague or John Edwards, I mean, it just makes me cringe. How they are the worst cold readers, and that's basically a technique that magicians use, that mentalists have used for well over 100 years to perform quote unquote tricks where they can apparently tap into the thoughts of individuals, but it's a trick. These individuals are using those same techniques, but in a very poor, pathetic way, but yet they are bilking people left, right, and center, and people believe what they have to say.
Well, wasn't
somebody like?
I'm sorry, wasn't John Edwards exposed by ABC News a number of years ago?
No, but he's still going strong.
Yeah, I don't understand it, Robert. I really don't understand it.
People want to believe. It's like trying to sink a rubber duck.
Yeah,
you might get it underwater for a minute, but it's going to pop right back up again. The classic example is televangelist Peter Popoff.
Oh, my Lord. There's a good one.
You know, he's still on the air today. In fact, was it just 2 years ago, he brought in more money in 1 year than what he brought in the year that he was exposed, and he had to shut his ministry down.
Well, didn't the same thing happen to Jimmy and Tammy Baker? That, you know, they had their, you know, he had his little affair, and, you know, the ministry was shut down. It came back stronger. Look at, what's the other guy I'm thinking of? Jimmy Swaggart, the same thing.
Yeah, in their cases, though, they were not claiming that they were healing people.
No, that's true. I digress.
You still might look at them, and you might, you know, look at them as being a bit despicable. But unlike Peter Popoff was making claims that God was talking directly to him, that God was giving him information about the people that were attending his revival meetings, that there's no way that Peter could know unless God actually gave him the information, and he was, quote unquote, healing people.
Hallelujah.
And James Randi had exposed him completely how he was doing it. You know, he had a small earpiece that mentalists sometimes use in his ear, and his wife was transmitting to him in an 18-wheeler tractor trailer in behind the auditoriums all the pertinent information. How'd they get that information? Well, they got the information as people were coming into the forum, just by mingling and talking with you. Oh, hi, how are you? What's your name? Oh, where are you from around here? You know, what are you here for? I was here. You know, Peter Popoff's a great guy. I had a sore knee back a couple years ago, and he healed it. And people will just give up information, and all this information is recorded. And that information was then fed to Peter. So it made it look like that, you know, God was giving him all this information.
Do you think
he was fully exposed on Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show?
Do you think that?
Exposed.
Do you think that the fact that these people go and they come back, and as you said, they're stronger when they come back, is that a flaw in society, or is that a flaw in our judicial system?
I think people just they really want to believe so badly, and also there's a big flaw in the judicial system. There's no doubt about it. I mean, these people are scamming people. They are seriously harming people. I mean, I can tell you stories about Benny Hinn, who's probably the biggest in the world today, and some of the things that he does.
Such as?
He has been.
All right, you've got my interest here. So you just can't lead me up the hill halfway and say, "Come on, let's go back down."
Well, it has been recorded that what they do, and this is fairly common with most of these faith healers, but it's a very egregious practice with Benny Hinn. When he calls people forward that want to be healed, he has screeners prior to people getting up to the stage, and they question people. And when you see a parent, and this has been recorded, when you see a parent holding a child that has, let's say, cerebral palsy or, some severe ailment, and you can tell the parents are just, they've lost all hope.
Yeah.
And they truly believe that this is their one last hope, that Benny Hinn or any of these other faith healers can actually heal their son and make their son, quote unquote, normal, make him healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And when they can't even get past the screeners will not allow them to step on the stage. Why is that?
I don't know.
Because they know that Benny Hinn cannot cure their son. You will never see somebody that has a serious ailment up on the stage to be healed.
Yeah, I've had intuitive healers on the show who've made all these claims that they can cure cancer, they can do this, they can do that. And I asked them point blank, well, why don't you go into the hospitals and cure people? Mm-hmm. That to me, that would be a very simple way of proving yourself.
It all comes down to science. Like I said, there are some people that call themselves healers that really believe that they have some power.
Right.
And those are just people, I'd say, that they're just unfortunate, they're just self-deluded. And again, I don't mean that in a negative sense, but they've just kind of convinced themselves that they have the ability. But it's the people that are just outright frauds that know they're defrauding people. I mean, you look at the lifestyle that Benny Hinn lives. I mean, he is a multi-millionaire. And how many people has he actually healed?
But wait a sec. We can say the same thing about the Vatican.
Well, yeah, don't even get me started there.
We can talk about each and every established religion and philosophy.
No, exactly. And the thing is, and nowadays science is such a bad word. And I find it very ironic because people love their cell phones, people love their televisions, people love their microwave ovens, people love their air conditioning. They love everything that science has to give them, except when it looks at some of their deep felt beliefs.
Well, that's because
for any of these faith healers, it would be very easy to set up a repeatable scientific experiment to see whether or not they actually possess the powers they possess. But why won't these people be tested?
Because they don't possess the powers that they claim they do.
Exactly. I mean, just what you said about going to a hospital.
Yeah.
If they have that ability, then why wouldn't you do that? And I get very angry, very upset with. Again, I'm talking about the people that know that they're frauds.
All right, now let's just. I want to ask you this question because I think it fits into the same category. Whenever you talk to people about hypnosis, they get excited about past life regression.
Yes.
What is that, and is it real, or is it the person's very own inner imagination that's at work?
Yeah, it's not real at all. I mean, there's so much that can go on with the depending on how the hypnotist, the way that suggestions are given, the way the suggestions are worded. I mean, hypnosis used to be used in a court of law to hypnotize witnesses and have them testify in a court to kind of relive the crime scene.
Yeah.
And that's not allowed anymore. That's against the law because what they have found out scientifically is that there's no way of telling what a person is saying under hypnosis, whether or not it's any more true than if they're not in a state of hypnosis. So this past life therapy stuff, I mean, it all started with the case back in the 40s or 50s, the Bridie Murphy case. And, people bought into it. I mean, it's very attractive. But it's just amazing how many of these cases, when you read into them, how many people, when they're taken back into quote-unquote previous lives, they've all been somebody famous, somebody of importance. And, you might think, well, it's all just in fun, and how can you really be harmed by this? Well, I have a documented case of a woman down in the States. She was in her 40s when she was having some deep psychological problems, some serious problems. And what she ended up doing, rather than going to her family doctor, she went to some past life therapists. And they took her back into her previous lives. And what they discovered was back, I don't know how many, it was many, many lives previous. She had been a slave owner, and she had a lot of young boys that were slaves, and she had physically and sexually abused these boys. Now, in today's life, the reason why she was having psychological problems was because when she was younger, when she was a young girl, she was physically and sexually abused by her father, and she had repressed a lot of those memories. She didn't seek help at that time.
Right.
So it was all starting to come out now when she was in her 40s. So what happened was this therapist, and I'll put the word therapist in quotes, in discovering that she used to have slaves that she physically and sexually abused, it just so happened that one of those slaves that she abused was her father in today's life. So because she had abused her father in a previous life, her father was paying her back for what she did to him.
Oh, brother.
Now, you tell me that's healthy?
No.
No, not at all.
But what about these, Bud Hopkins, for example? He's an artist turned hypnotist, and, he does hypnotic regression on people who claim to have been abducted by aliens. Yes. Once again,
people going into that situation, they know exactly what type of information that Bud is looking for. They have a specific quote unquote problem, which is they believe that they have been abducted by aliens. So the scene basically has been preset. And when a person is, and I hate using the word hypnosis because it's just not what most people think it is, but we don't have another term. But when a person is in that state of hypnosis, they're not in a deep sleep. They are not in a trance state. It's been shown that the trance state does not exist. Rather, a person is more awake than anything. And when you're relaxed, your imagination can actually run wild and run free. And especially if your imagination is urged on by the questions that the hypnotist is giving you, it can create quite an interesting scenario.
Wow.
But it doesn't mean it's real.
So what happens physiologically when someone is hypnotized?
Nobody can agree on an actual definition. I mean, it has been approved by the American Medical Association as a modality, a healing modality, but as far as its effectiveness, it can help minimally with some people. But the way I like to describe it is that the state of hypnosis is simply, it's a highly focused state of attention. And the best way to describe it or illustrate it would be take two people that are sitting on a park bench on a busy street, and they both have books. And you'll have one person will open up their book and they'll read the first line, and then a police car zooms by. So what do is they look up and they find out what's going on. Then they go back to the book. They have to reread that first line, and then they hear a baby crying somewhere, and then there's a dog barking, and they're continuously distracted. In other words, they're having a hard time focusing on the book. Whereas the other person, sitting on that same park bench, under those same circumstances, it's almost like they're in the privacy of their own home, that they're totally engrossed in their book. Now, the question is, does that person hear the police car, hear the baby crying, hear the dog barking? Well, of course they do. You can't stop your hearing. But why aren't they responding to it? Well, because it's not important to them. What they're doing is they're focusing all their attention as best as they can on their task at hand, which is they want to read the book. They want to absorb what's in the book.
You and I have to take our final break, Robert. Please stand by. Always great having you here with us in the X Zone. Robert LAMAR is our special guest, www.robertlamar.ca and skeptrix.com. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as the X Zone wraps up for today. And today's date is Thursday, July the 8th. Some parts of Canada, it is still, as well as the parts of the United States, Wednesday, July the 7th. We'll be back. Don't go away.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN-TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Robert LAMAR is our special guest this hour, X Zone Nation, www.robertlamar.ca and www.skeptrix.com. Robert, if hypnosis really doesn't work, why are there hypnotherapists, and why do people go to them for everything from personality disorders to quitting smoking, eating disorders, and other psychological problems? What's really happening then? Is it the person's own willpower that is making them stop? And I don't understand it.
It's just, it's not that it doesn't work. It's just it doesn't work the way most people believe that it works. You know, the old stereotypical swinging a pocket watch in front of a person's eyes, and they become in what I like to call the Hollywood trance state.
Mm-hmm.
All it is just trying to get people to react to suggestion. For example, when you go to attend a movie, if you want to really experience the movie, you have to suspend your disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, when there's a scary scene, what happens? You get goosebumps on your skin, and you get a little scared. Your heart starts beating.
Or when something scary happens, you jump in your seat.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, if you analyze what's going on, you realize it's not real. It's just actors, it's the scene, it's the music that's playing, it's the lighting, it's the special effects that create an atmosphere that make it seem real, and you're buying into it at that time. Well, it's the same thing with hypnosis, is you're just buying into the concept of relaxing and listening to the suggestions of the hypnotist. The person is in full control, however. And that's why, for example, hypnosis has been used in childbirth quite a bit. Now, I've never given birth myself personally. I don't know what it's like, but by talking with my wife, it's quite painful.
Yes.
And hypnosis can help some individuals to ease the pain.
Mm.
And all they're doing is, through the guidance of the hypnotist, is to direct their attention not at the pain that's taking place, but try to focus all their attention elsewhere. For example, imagining that they're laying on a beach in Jamaica and literally like feeling the sun beating down and the sand between your toes and under your body. And
so it's a redirection of attention.
That's it. Now, they'll still feel the pain, but it will not be as intense if a person is able to redirect their focus. That's all it is. They're in full control. The hypnotist has no power, no control over the person whatsoever. And when I hear a lot of hypnotists especially use the term the trance state, I just cringe, because there's been no scientific proof that the trance state actually exists.
Is that why most people look at hypnosis as a pseudo effect?
Some people do, definitely, and I don't blame them. You should look at everything skeptically. You should question everything.
Hey, Robert, we've just run out of time. Hate to do this to you, buddy. We'll have you back on in the near future to talk more about this fascinating topic. Great having you with us, Robert. Take care of yourself. Congratulations on Theater of the Mind and all the other great things that you're up to. And take care of yourself in beautiful Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Well, thank you very much. You do a great job. I love your show.
Thanks, partner. Exo Nation, Robert LAMAR, www.robertlamar.ca and www.skeptrix.com. Well, that's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we meet here in the X Zone. Take care of each other, love your children, and as I always say, please always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night now.